to Past, Present, and Future Gnosis. It's your host, always, Mr. Gnosis. And I'm back with another one for you guys. And have you seen from the title the truth about the Renaissance and what scholars and academics are passing by? Now, this is going to be really an important video. And before I begin, I want to get one thing across. It's just that when you do your research and you do true research, not bias, but like true research, you start seeing things in a different light from what you get told from your textbooks and like scholarly worship. So before I begin and I dive deep in this is no hate, this is no attack to any group. This is no hate strife or anything like that. I just want to let you know that this may hurt certain people because certain people don't know this information, and I want to get this across. But history doesn't lie, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, history does lie, but time doesn't lie. When certain events happen at certain times, you need to know there's certain events which transpired around these times. So I just wanted to get that across. So, like, again, no attack to any culture, anybody, individual group. This is just history, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get straight right into this. So now, the Renaissance. This is going to be important now. Two things I want to extrapolate before we begin is it's going to be critical thinking and the timeline. These two are going to be really crucial in this video, so you guys need to really step in when it comes to that. I can't stress that enough when it comes to this, but let's get into it. So now, the Renaissance. As you learned in school, all this philosophy, literature, and art, all this is transpiring around this time. A bunch of household names like Leonardo da Vinci and Masaccio, a Florentine painter, as you see here, all came from this time. And before I go a little bit further, and if you don't know about the Renaissance, I'll give you all a quick little rundown about the Renaissance. And the Renaissance was a variant period of European cultural, artistic, political, and economic rebirth following the Middle Ages, generally described as taking place from the 14th century to the 17th century. Now, remember that I told you guys earlier, remember the dates, because the date's going to be everything now. So just wanted to put that out there, but let me continue. The Renaissance promoted the rediscovery of classical philosophy, literature, and art. Some of the greatest thinkers, authors, statesmen, scientists, and artists in human history thrived during this era. While global exploration opened up new lands and cultures to European commerce, the Renaissance is credited with bridging the gap between the Middle Ages and a modern-day civilization. During the 14th century, a cultural movement called humanism began to gain momentum in Italy. Among its many principles, humanism promoted the idea that man was the center of his own universe and people should embrace human achievements in education, classical arts, literature, and science. I mean, like, from just there, you can just see all of this that's transpiring around this time. New people are thinking about innovative things, new scientists, a lot of philosophers, art, as I said, with Da Vinci and Mascara, are all being born, you can say in a sense, around this time. But when you do your history and you do the timeline, what transpired before all this? And I think a lot of people don't look around this time to put it in perspective. They just got out of the Dark Ages around 5th century CE all the way to 14th century CE. And if you know anything about the Dark Ages or about what they tell you about the Dark Ages is the Dark Ages, also known as the early Middle Ages, is a period of Western European history that lasted from the late 5th or early 6th century to the 10th century CE, pushing 14th century CE also. It is marked by the frequent warfare and the virtual disappearance of urban life. The timeline falls between the fall of the Roman Empire in a residence, which would be 14 CE to 17 CE. Just putting that out there. The period has been called the Dark Ages because it saw little science or cultural advancement. Little science or cultural advancement. That's going to be a big one now because if this time, with all this warfare that's going on around this time, as you just saw from what the mainstream says about it, there's all this fighting, all this bloodshed, all this war that's going on. Rome just lost control. How are these people coming out from the Dark Ages and just quickly establishing all this art, all this science, astrology, all this literature, philosophy? I mean, like I just said, Leonardo da Vinci came straight around this era. They just didn't just pop up with all this information. If you know anything about educating a society or educating people, this takes decades, people, centuries also too, to get an established source of information so that you could pass that to the next kin. So how is all this going on, all this war and bloodshed going on? But then out of all this, we get the Renaissance and all of this fancy stuff, philosophy, art, literature. I mean, like, something doesn't add up, ladies and gentlemen. And I think that's the big thing. So when you do your research and you try to figure out, what must have been going on around this time that can, let's say, go with it, because clearly some education must have been thriving. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, there's no if, ands about that. As I just explained, when it comes to educating a society, no society is going to just pop up with all this information and all this knowledge. This is knowledge, ladies and gentlemen, that had to be passed down. They're not just going to pop up willy-nilly like nothing happened. No. A group of people, or somebody must have been still teaching these people. And where I want to go through is that who was around this time? And who was around this time is the Moors, ladies and gentlemen. They conquered Spain in this area from 711 CE all the way to 1500 CE. And if you do your research with the Moors, everything just blows up. And the Moors did so much for this place. As I'll show you here real quick about what the Moors contributed to this area real quick. During this time, the Moors made significant contributions to fields such as mathematics, astronomy, and medicine, which had a lasting impact on Europe's intellectual development and brought the continent from the Dark Ages into the Renaissance. Boom. I mean, that's just a little example there. But then, like, who were these Moors? It's like the real question. And like, yes, you can go on YouTube. You'll see all these other videos talking about the Moors. And I will be doing a deeper dive about these Moors because there's a lot when it comes to these Moors. But let me give you just about who these Moors are, because as you just saw that they were making a big difference when it comes to Europe coming out of the Dark Ages. You could do a just soft look online, but who are the Moors? And just to give you just a little quick example who these Moors are. The origins of the Moors can be traced to North Africa before the invasion of the Arabs on the black soil. At this time, the natives of the North African region were referred to as Berbers. Following the capture of North Africa in the 7th century, the Arabs brought along their language and new established religion, Islam, to the natives of North Africa countries like Morocco, leading to the rise of Black African Muslims. And before I continue, before these Muslims actually even got here, there was educated African people already established in this area. So I just want to point this out before I show you the mixture of the Islam influence. But Clearly, there was already established Africans here, educated Africans, I should say. But let me keep going. Years later in history, an army comprising the majority of these black Muslims would invade, capturing and rule Europe, and this group would afterwards be referred to specifically as the Moors. Although the term has found its specific use in a sense, like many other words, it evolved and was adopted as a generic term for North African Muslims and black skinned people. Ooh, that's going to be a big one, people. That's going to be a big one. Black skinned people living in Europe. However, in cultural arts today, the word Moor is continually used to depict artists' artworks related to Moorish Empire. And now, as you just seen that from that, just giving you a little rush, like, so these were black, Muslim, North African people that took over Spain for about 700 to 800 years, ladies and gentlemen. And I failed to like hear this in the textbooks because like honestly when I went to school, I'm not gonna lie to you, like I didn't really hear about this, or maybe they wanted to gloss over this a little bit. But the Moors, black skinned African people that were already living in Europe, Morocco, North Africa, right there. And just to shine a little bit light more on, I want to go show you the Britannica little definition of it too, to shine a little bit more light. Their term is of little use in describing the ethnic characteristics of any group, ancient or modern. That's really crucial because listen to this right here. Remember, the term is of little use in describing the ethnic characteristics of any groups, ancient or modern. From the Middle Ages to the 17th century, however, Europeans depicted Moors as being black, swarthy, or tawny in skin color. So now, what was the point of me translating towards the Moors? The reason I want to transcend is that these group of people that took over Spain from 711 CE all the way to the 1500s CE fits this timeline of the Dark Ages. Because remember, as I showed you earlier, the Dark Ages was from 5th century CE through 14th century CE, with a little bit minor years. I'll give you guys that. But what did they just say? They said that there was no information or type of knowledge being bestowed. But clearly, we have this group of people being here and bestowing knowledge, astronomy, astrology, art, philosophy to these people for 700 years. I mean, like, be honest with yourself. These people conquered this time for all these years, but they said that there was all the wars that were going on. It just doesn't fit. And this is where critical thinking comes in, and where more information, or as I should say, is just that more research comes in. As I'll show you here, African Moorish influence on education in Europe. The African Moors had a significant influence on education, particularly during their rule in Spain from the 8th century to the 5th century. They established many universities, libraries, and schools, and their intellectual achievements contributed significantly to the development of education in Europe. One of the most significant contributions of the Moors was their translation of many work of ancient Greek philosophers into Arabic. That's really interesting right there. That they're the ones that brought all this old knowledge back into this area. That's very important, people. Let's continue. These works were then translated into Latin and became widely available to scholars throughout Europe. The Moors also made significant advances in mathematics, including algebra and geometry, which had a lasting impact on the development of education in Europe. I mean, like, I'm not even done with this article, but clearly you can see that during the Dark Ages, the Moors were there educating the Europeans. They're giving them all this knowledge to astrology, mathematics, and they're establishing schools, ladies and gentlemen. But let me continue. The Moors also established many libraries, including the famous library at Alberia, which was one of the largest libraries in the world at the time. These libraries were open to scholars of all religions, and they became centers of intellectual exchange and learning. Overall, the African Moors had a significant influence on education in Europe, particularly during their rule in Spain. Their intellectual achievements and contributions to mathematics, philosophy, and education had a lasting impact on the development of European civilizations. I mean, like, wow, ladies and gentlemen, that is just crazy. I mean, like, where is all this information that we're getting all this? So let's take a second back here before I continue. We just saw that the Dark Ages, clearly they're saying that no no knowledge is being brought into this area. Nothing's going on. There's all these wars. There's all these savages. Rome just fell again. Remember, Rome just fell. And that nothing of value is going on this time. But then you look at the Moors that were there from, they were there from 7th century CE, 711 CE, all the way to 15th century CE. Around this area, educating the Europeans when it comes to astronomy, astrology, mathematics. Come on, people. Again, here comes the critical thinking. Why isn't this pushed more? The Europeans, these Europeans, I would say, are being educated by Black, African, Muslim people called Moors. Plain and simple. You've seen the photos that you see about the Moors. Go ahead, do a quick Google search about the Moors. See what they look like. And this is what I try to explain earlier in the video, where some people were going to turn their head around this information. And now people are going to grasp it. This was no hate. It's just that this is clearly showing that these Moors educated the Europeans. And then that's where we get the Renaissance, which follows after 14th century CE to 17th CE. This was the Dark Ages, ladies and gentlemen. The Dark Ages was this area when these North African Muslims were educating the Europeans through this time. And just to talk about the Dark Ages and where it really came from, it's going to blow your mind, but you see here, the Dark Ages is a term of the early Middle Ages, or occasionally the entire Middle Ages in Western Europe after the fall of the Western Roman Empire. The characteristics is marked by the economic, intellectual, and cultural decline. Decline, okay, as I just shown you. But the concept of a Dark Age is a historiographical paradigm originated in the 1330s with the Italian scholar Petrarch, who regarded the post-Roman centuries as dark compared to the light of classical antiquity. Come on. This man is the one who orchestrated and made the foundation of the Dark Ages. This man was comparing the different time periods when it comes to the post-Roman centuries and the past because of the fall of Rome. You got to see where the allegiance lies with this person that doctrinated all the word for the Dark Ages. Just because this one person is saying that, oh, everything's fall, this is the Dark Ages, that doesn't mean that no information was being projected out to the vast majority of the people. Look, people, Leonardo da Vinci came out of all of this. Look at all the information. This really just blows my mind. Not a lot of people are talking about it, but I'm about, want to say 20 to 25 minutes in this video. And this is all just laid to the ground, people. that you can all research. And I also have a book that you can also look into, From Byzantine to Islamic Egypt. I mean, like, this was a good read, and I'll put it into this video so you guys can see it. But clearly, ladies and gentlemen, this is what scholars and some historians want to brush over. Yeah, they want to focus straight on to the Renaissance, the conclusion, and everything. But what were the steps that led there? And it was the Moors coming in here from 711 CE all the way to 15 CE, educating these Europeans all the way out of the Dark Ages, which was from varies, I'll say that again, from 5 CE all the way to 14 CE. And then we get the emergence of the Renaissance, 14th century all the way to the 17th century CE. I mean, clearly, ladies and gentlemen, this is all just here. It's just, you got to just look for it. But that just blew my mind researching all of this, and this, like, why this isn't brought to the front grades. But I think we all know why this is all to be. I don't have to go into detail and push more. But anyway, like I just said, critical thinking and the timeline. The timeline cannot be lied to. You just need to know what happened during this time, what transpired, and what the conclusion is. And I haven't even talked about what's going on with Rome. Why did Rome fall? Which I will be talking about in another video, because that timeline is just crazy in its own sense. I mean, like, I don't want to say too much, but also I will be diving deep about more of the Moors, because there's just so much more that I haven't even touched on. I barely scratched the surface, because there's more to these Muslims and to these that meets the eye, and another connection that goes with them into maybe probably another group that they're associated with, but I'll save that for another video. But I wanted to get this out because this is going to branch out to other videos also. It's like I said, the contributions from Africa is outstanding, ladies and gentlemen. Like, again, this is no attack to any group or any type of people, but this is just history. And sometimes history hurts, which I can say, because been reading a lot, and I've seen a lot of things, read a lot of things that I'm not too happy with, but it happened and got to own up to it. The truth hurts, but history is history, man. Some people try to hide it or, white it out. But it's there if you're looking for it. You have to do your research. You have to dive deep. But anywho, what do you guys think? Please, let's get into the comments section. What do you guys think about this? Did you guys know about the Moors educating the Europeans around this time, and that they're saying from the textbooks, normal textbooks, that the Dark Ages, nothing was going on. It was all these wars. Rome fell. No education was being provided, but clearly a lot of information in science and education was being provided. But anywho, what do you guys think? And like I said, I will be doing a deep dive video, but let's get in the comment section. Let's talk about it. More videos are on the way. I appreciate you all taking the time to watch this. I mean, like, this is history, ladies and gentlemen. Like, I always give you all nothing but facts and research, so you all can do your research. But please do your research, do your due diligence, and you'll see things will come to the light. But anyway, thank you again for taking the time to watch this video. More videos on the way. Check out my other videos. Will be doing a maybe updated video coming soon about me learning what books that I've learned from, and I want to give it to you guys. Spend a lot of money on these books. I just want to say that. So Amazon has a crutch on me, man. You got me, man. But anywho, thank you all for taking the time to watch this video, and I catch you all on the next one. Cheers, y'all. Thank you for taking the time. Peace.